Have you ever felt misunderstood, as if what you were saying just didn't reach the other person? Imagine for a moment having the ability to truly understand what people are feeling, to connect so authentically that words flow effortlessly and misunderstandings disappear. This isn't a superpower, it's a skill we can all learn. Today I'm going to show you how small changes in the way you communicate can transform the quality of your relationships, open doors in both your personal and professional life, and create connections that truly matter. If you're ready to stop talking just for the sake of talking and start communicating meaningfully, stay with me, because this could change everything. The ability to communicate effectively isn't just about having a special talent. In reality, it's a powerful tool within everyone's reach, and its impact can be the difference between opening new doors or staying stuck in a cycle of misunderstanding. This tool has the power to turn any situation, even the most complex, into an opportunity to move forward and genuinely connect with others. It's not about mastering a set of rules or perfect phrases, but learning to communicate from an authentic and empathetic place, without pressure, without manipulation, but by understanding the needs and concerns of those around us. Imagine for a moment that you're in a tense situation with someone who holds crucial information for you but isn't easily swayed by empty promises of reward. What could make that person open up, share, and cooperate? The key lies in how you choose to communicate. Jim Lawler, a former CIA agent, understood this brilliantly. Despite the challenging circumstances he found himself in, he didn't resort to intimidation or pressure. What set him apart from others was his ability to create an environment where people felt comfortable and respected. It wasn't a power play, it was a genuine exchange where people saw the value in what was being shared. That wasn't luck. It was the result of a cultivated skill, a conscious and patient approach that was perfected over time. The interesting thing is that in everyday life, many of us underestimate the power of this skill. We think that only experts or those with years of experience in the field know how to connect effectively. But the truth is, we don't need to be psychology experts or have years of practice to get someone to listen or cooperate. The key isn't having the perfect answers, it's in how we approach the conversation. What if I told you that every conversation you have, whether work-related or personal, is in some way a form of negotiation? But don't get confused. I'm not talking about a transaction in the strict sense, but about understanding what's at stake, a relationship, and understanding mutual trust. Effective communication isn't just about what we say, it's also about how we say it. Our tone, our posture, and the pauses between words are all integral parts of the message we're sending. These small variations have a profound impact on how the message is received, far beyond the words themselves. And when we're silent, our actions and gestures are also sending signals. The posture we adopt, how we move, the gaze we direct, all of that communicates something that can reinforce or contradict what we say with our words. The real magic of effective communication lies in the subtlety, in that ability to convey a powerful message without forcing anything, simply being aware of how every gesture and word has a purpose. In my own journey, I've come to realize that communication isn't just a tool for achieving our goals, but a way to strengthen our humanity. In every conversation beyond the immediate objectives, we're creating bonds. Actively listening, asking questions that invite reflection, and expressing our ideas with clarity and empathy not only help us achieve our goals, but also build a network of genuine human relationships that enrich us on every level. This way of communicating allows us to see others not as means to an end, but as human beings with their own stories and perspectives, enabling us to connect on a much deeper level. And sometimes it only takes one conversation. A conversation at the right time, with the right person, can change the course of an entire situation. And the best part is that it's not about having the perfect script or knowing exactly what to say in every moment. The real magic of communication lies in authenticity, in being present and aware of the context, in reading the unspoken emotions, and in adapting our approach to each situation without losing our essence. Because effective communication isn't something you can learn only from books or classes, it's cultivated through constant practice and the willingness to truly be present in every conversation, striving to understand both what is said and what is left unsaid. Conversations are much more than simple exchanges of words. Often what is said is just the surface layer of a complex web of emotions, intentions, and expectations. It's easy to focus solely on the words, but if we do, we miss the true meaning behind each interaction. Every conversation is a reflection of the people involved, their experiences, their fears, their unspoken desires. Even an apparently trivial topic, like a discussion about which sauce to choose for appetizers, can conceal deeper layers of non-verbal communication. What's at stake is often not what's directly mentioned, but what's unsaid yet felt in the air. Imagine a common situation: you're with a friend at a restaurant, and they mention that they don't like the mustard you ordered for them. You might think it's just a personal preference, a small detail with no significance. But if you take a moment to reflect, you might notice that there's something more behind those words. Perhaps they feel overlooked because you didn't ask for their opinion before making the decision. At first, our instinctive response might be to dismiss that complaint as something minor, something irrelevant. But if we start looking beyond the words, we realize that conversations are always loaded with hidden meanings. Every gesture, every tone, every pause has the potential to change the direction of the interaction. It speaks to what the other person truly needs or feels, even if they don't express it directly. This is one of the greatest challenges in human interactions: learning to understand the underlying emotions. Often the topic being discussed isn't the most important thing. What truly matters is the connection between the people involved, the need to feel heard, understood, validated. If we only pay attention to the literal words, we risk missing the essence of the conversation. Isn't it true that many times what's really needed isn't a logical or rational response, but an emotional recognition of what the other person is experiencing? This is a lesson I've learned over time. Asking reflective questions, listening between the lines, and paying attention to those emotional details can reveal much more about the other person than simply staying within the visible content of the conversation. The key to all of this lies in timing, this ability to respond appropriately and show empathy at the right moment. Timing doesn't just involve listening, it's about understanding the rhythm of the conversation, the emotional dynamics at play. By being in tune with the other person, you can anticipate their needs, respond in a way that makes them feel valued, and create a space where they can open up without fear. Without this timing, even the simplest conversation can quickly fall apart. A small misunderstanding can escalate and turn into a larger conflict if the emotions involved aren't properly managed. Effective communication isn't just about words, it's about reading the emotional atmosphere and knowing when to intervene, when to give space, and when to reaffirm mutual understanding. This is where a simple action like paraphrasing can make a huge difference. Taking a moment to say something like, "Oh, I didn't ask which sauce you preferred before ordering, and now I see that this really bothers you," not only clears up the misunderstanding, but also shows that you're willing to listen. This small gesture isn't about defending your stance or correcting the situation immediately. It's about showing that you understand the emotions involved. And that simple act of recognizing and validating what the other person feels can turn a small disagreement into a space of deep understanding. The most powerful thing about these conversations is that they don't just resolve misunderstandings, they strengthen relationships. By offering an empathetic response and showing that you genuinely care about how the other person feels, you're building a foundation of trust and mutual respect. Instead of seeing a discrepancy as an obstacle, you turn it into an opportunity to connect and deepen your bond. Sometimes the simplest moments, like a conversation about sauce or an apparently trivial decision, have the power to strengthen ties. Because in the end, human relationships are built on these small moments where we listen to each other, understand each other, and validate one another. The real challenge then is learning to stay calm and be aware of the emotions of others, especially when conversations become difficult or uncomfortable. Even in those moments of tension, being able to recognize the expectations and feelings of the other person can transform a simple interaction into something much more meaningful. The ability to understand and empathize, to read between the lines and emotionally connect, is an invaluable skill, because ultimately the quality of our relationships isn't measured by the number of words we say, but by the depth with which we manage to understand and be understood. The ability to connect with the emotions of others is an invaluable tool, especially when aiming to establish genuine communication. Whether in our personal or professional lives, learning to listen and understand the emotions of those around us not only creates space for dialogue, but also facilitates conflict resolution and strengthens bonds. In a world where interactions are becoming increasingly fast-paced and superficial, the simple act of pausing to feel and understand others can profoundly transform our relationships. Imagine for a moment that you're in an important meeting, perhaps with someone you've just met, like the CEO of a company you're looking to do business with. You're nervous, your hands are trembling, and in a clumsy attempt to control your anxiety, you drop a folder on your foot. Instead of trying to hide the embarrassment or pretend nothing happened, you decide to make a joke about it. "I think my career as a soccer player is over." It's fascinating how in just a few seconds, an awkward situation turns into an opportunity to connect on a human level. That small gesture, that shared vulnerability, completely changes the tone of the conversation. The laughter that follows isn't just a release of tension, but becomes a bridge connecting two people on a level beyond the professional. These kinds of interactions not only generate likability, but also have the power to transform everyday situations into opportunities to build valuable alliances. By showing vulnerability, by sharing a more authentic side of ourselves, people tend to respond in kind. This doesn't only happen in work meetings. In any type of conversation, recognizing and addressing the emotions of others can elevate the interaction to something much more meaningful. Often what we need isn't to be dramatic or overwhelm others with our emotions, but simply to be sincere, human. The small anecdotes we share, those seemingly insignificant details, are what allow us to connect on a deep level. When we let conversations flow with this authenticity, we not only create a better understanding of others, but also invite them to share their own vulnerability, opening up a space where everyone feels heard and understood. The key to all of this is being aware of how emotions influence our decisions and relationships. Emotions many times don't just guide our behavior, they also play a fundamental role in our ability to work as a team, make decisions, or solve problems. A good example of this is NASA's approach to selecting astronauts. While technical skills are crucial, NASA also focuses on evaluating the emotional intelligence of its candidates. This is because performance under pressure doesn't depend solely on technical competence, but also on an individual's ability to interact effectively, understand others, and manage their own emotions in extreme situations. This same principle can be applied to many areas of our lives. In everyday life, our interactions and decisions are often not dictated solely by reason, but by the way we handle our emotions and those of others. Of course, not every conversation needs to be deeply emotional or intense. However, adding a touch of sincerity and genuine emotion to everyday interactions can completely change the dynamic. Sometimes it's not about asking the most elaborate questions, but asking the right ones. Instead of resorting to typical superficial questions like, "Where did you go to college?" you could ask something deeper like, "What inspired you to study that career? What was the most passionate thing about your time in college?" These kinds of questions not only show genuine interest, but also invite the other person to share more personal aspects of themselves, revealing their values and beliefs. By doing this, you create a space where the other person not only feels heard but also understood, which opens doors to new connections and understandings. In the end, emotions are what connect us. They are the foundation upon which we build authentic relationships, the force that allows us to relate to others in a deeper way. Sometimes all we need for those connections to flourish is a small gesture of vulnerability or a profound question that invites someone to share something real. Because ultimately, emotions are the essence that makes our interactions not only meaningful, but also capable of transforming our lives and the lives of others. Have you ever stopped to think about who you truly are? While it seems like a simple question, the answer is deeply unique for each person. We all carry within us a variety of social identities that are shaped and transformed depending on the situations and contexts we find ourselves in. You may be a student, an employee, a mother, a son, or even a volunteer in your community. Each of these facets greatly influences how we see ourselves and, of course, how we interact with others. Each of these roles carries a different weight in our personal identity, but none of them are static. They change, evolve, and intertwine with the experiences and emotions of the moment. making our perception of who we are fluid as well. When you speak with someone, whether in a personal or professional setting, recognizing the identity that person is carrying at that moment is crucial for effective communication. It's not the same to interact with a colleague in a work meeting as it is with a friend at a social gathering. Expectations and dynamics shift depending on the role each person is playing. And when we are aware of these nuances, our ability to connect, understand, and have a smooth conversation increases significantly. This awareness allows us to tailor our responses more empathetically, respectfully, and appropriately. Imagine, for instance, that you are a secret agent trying to obtain key information from someone who, based on their beliefs, thinks everything in life is predestined. If instead of approaching them with respect, you rush to challenge their beliefs with logical facts or complex reasoning, it's likely that, rather than opening up a dialogue, you will cause the other person to close up even more. When someone's core beliefs are questioned, their natural defense mechanism is to shut down. This is a clear example of how identity, in this case, fundamental beliefs about destiny, plays a crucial role in how we communicate. However, this challenge doesn't mean you should manipulate or lie. It's about recognizing the other person's perspective and validating it. Instead of trying to invalidate their belief in destiny, you can take it as a starting point. It's true that some things in life seem guided by higher forces, but don't you think these forces can also inspire us to do good? In this way, you're not directly challenging their perspective, but aligning it with the common purpose of the conversation. This strategy not only generates respect, but over time, can open the door to a deeper and more constructive understanding. I've learned that, despite our differences in beliefs and values, we all share certain common principles. Most cultures and traditions value kindness, empathy, and respect for others. By identifying these common points, it's possible to build bridges between different perspectives. The key isn't pretending to be someone you're not, but rather recognizing those small yet powerful intersections where our beliefs and values meet. It's in those spaces where conversations can flourish, even in the midst of difference, creating a genuine connection. This principle of appealing to social identity applies not only in formal or work settings, but is equally relevant in our daily interactions. Imagine a conversation with a friend who practices a religion different from yours. The differences in beliefs might seem vast, but you'll often find that both you and your friend share the value of helping others or working for the common good. That common ground, that mutual respect for universal principles, can create a solid bridge upon which to build a respectful and enriching dialogue, without the need for complete agreement or forcing a change of opinion. In the end, what we all are is a mosaic of identities that adapt to the context we find ourselves in. When we manage to identify those identities and connect with them authentically, we can create more empathetic, more human, and more effective conversations. It's about recognizing the person behind their beliefs, perspectives, and roles, and from that understanding, building mutual comprehension that doesn't require conversions or radical changes of opinion. By connecting with what truly matters to each person in their moment, we can cultivate a space where respect and empathy flow naturally. The impact of the internet on our lives has been so profound that today it's almost impossible to imagine what the world would be like without it. Since the COVID-19 pandemic accelerated our digital dependence, our interactions have changed in ways that are almost irreversible. Work, education, and personal relationships have found in the web an indispensable space to function. But while the internet offers an endless array of advantages, it also presents challenges that we often overlook. This digital transformation has brought us closer but also created an emotional distance that, though invisible, is deeply felt. One of the biggest problems with digital communication is that it lacks the nuances and details that face-to-face interactions provide. From a young age, we are taught to read others' emotions through nonverbal cues, tone of voice, gestures, posture, facial expressions. These subtle details are essential for understanding what is truly happening in a conversation. In the digital world, these cues are lost, and what could be a fluid conversation turns into a space devoid of the subtleties that make authentic connection possible. Often we get carried away by what's said without considering what's left unsaid, what's not visible but is still part of the message. I remember once being on an important video call for a work negotiation. Although we had the best technology available, there was something fundamental that couldn't be replicated: the closeness, the shared energy, and the body language that often says much more than words ever could. Even though I made an effort to be clear and precise in my points, something didn't land with the same force as it would have in person. In that moment, I realized that, although technology has advanced impressively, it still cannot replace the richness of direct human communication. Digital interactions can be useful, but they lack the ability to fully convey the emotional tone of a situation. In this environment, politeness becomes a crucial factor. In a digital medium where nonverbal signals are non-existent, manners and respect become the pillars of interaction. Simply including phrases like "thank you," "please," or "sorry" can have a huge impact on how the conversation flows. In fact, studies have shown that interactions that begin respectfully are more likely to develop positively. In the digital space, kind and considerate language acts as a bridge that maintains human connection, reducing the invisible barriers that arise when we're not face to face. This kind of courtesy not only improves the tone of communication but also creates a safer and more open environment for sharing ideas. I've also learned that sarcasm in digital communication can be a slippery slope. While in face-to-face interactions it's relatively easy to detect a sarcastic tone through body language and intonation, in a written message or video call those nuances aren't present. Words can be misinterpreted, and what should have been a harmless joke can quickly turn into a conflict. Often, a misplaced word can trigger a reaction that gets magnified in the digital environment. This phenomenon is a reminder of how the emotional distance in virtual interactions can distort the impact of our words, making them more vulnerable to misinterpretation. On the other hand, I've noticed that negative criticism, especially in forums or social media, can have a much greater effect in the digital world than in face-to-face conversations. While in person, criticism can be softened by immediate empathy and context, on the internet, words are amplified and rapidly multiplied, often disproportionately. This chain reaction phenomenon can escalate into something destructive far beyond the original intent of the critique. The lack of physical contact and the barriers provided by the screen make us lose sight of the humanity of those on the other side. Sometimes words become arrows that wound without us truly knowing the damage we're causing. This digital context in many ways is the Wild West of our era. It's a territory where the rules of communication are constantly evolving, and interactions can be as unpredictable as they are exciting. Despite technological advances, the ability to connect in a human way remains a challenge. However, by adopting basic strategies like courtesy, clarity, and empathy, we can navigate this digital world successfully. By doing so, we minimize the risks of misunderstandings and create more authentic and effective connections. In the end, while the internet has transformed the way we communicate, what never changes is the basic human need to be heard, understood, and respected. The desire for connection remains the same, no matter the platform we are on. What technology allows us to do is expand those bonds, but the essence of what makes us human still resides in how we treat one another. The tool has changed, but the need to connect genuinely remains as strong as ever. In life, we all face moments when emotions overflow and tensions reach a critical point. In those moments, the idea of restoring smooth and harmonious communication may seem like a distant dream, something hard to achieve. However, what we often don't realize is that conflicts are not only inevitable, but also an essential part of any human relationship. From a trivial argument with a friend to a deep fight with a loved one, how we handle these disagreements can often determine the quality of our long-term connections. It's interesting how, instead of avoiding conflicts at all costs, what really matters is the ability to manage them constructively, because disagreements often reveal more about our own emotions and needs. In my experience, I've observed how, in many cases, managing a conflict isn't so much about resolving the problem itself, but about how we manage the emotions involved. Scientific studies have shown that happy couples don't necessarily have fewer disagreements, but they are much more effective in dealing with them. This is because the way each person communicates during a conflict can be far more important than the nature of the disagreement itself. Sometimes the real challenge isn't the disagreement, but how we respond emotionally to it. Trying to impose our point of view or forcing the other person to see things our way can easily increase hostility and move both parties further from a true resolution. When I'm in the middle of a disagreement, I sometimes feel tempted to win the argument at all costs. But over time, I've learned that while it's natural to want control, trying to control the other person is actually more destructive than helpful. I've witnessed how some couples fall into the trap of criticizing every little gesture of the other, like "don't roll your eyes" or "don't talk to me that way." These constant critiques, while they may seem harmless at first, only create more distance and resentment. Every time we focus our energy on trying to correct what we don't like about the other, we miss the opportunity to reflect on what's really happening in that moment, our own emotions. What truly makes a difference in any relationship is how we manage those emotions and how we communicate them effectively. I've noticed that couples who manage to maintain a healthy relationship are the ones who don't try to control every aspect of the other, but focus on understanding and channeling their own emotions. Speaking more calmly, taking a moment to reflect before responding, and being aware of the other person's reactions are essential skills that can turn a potentially destructive argument into an opportunity for mutual growth. I remember once in the middle of a difficult conversation with a friend, I suggested taking a brief break to calm the waters before continuing. It was amazing how this pause allowed us to clarify our thoughts, reduce tension, and ultimately resolve the conflict in a much more positive way. This small pause was a way to give each of us space to process our emotions, a reminder that we don't always have to win an argument but rather find a resolution. The key is temperance. It's not about always yielding, but about finding a way to manage our emotions in a way that allows us to make smarter decisions, even when we're under pressure. In everyday situations, like when your partner starts singing in the shower in the middle of the night, instead of jumping into conflict and criticizing, you might wait until the next morning to talk about how it made you feel. This small pause not only prevents an unnecessary argument, but also opens up a space for empathy and understanding. It's surprising how often what we really need is time to calm our reactions before responding, a space that lets us see the situation with greater clarity. It's true that in moments of tension, we all want to feel in control, but the most effective approach is to focus on what we can truly manage: our own emotions, how we respond, and most importantly, how we maintain a healthy space for the other person to express their feelings. This not only gives us power in the situation, but also allows for a more peaceful and constructive resolution. What we can really control is our attitude and reactions, which gives us the ability to transform any conflict into an opportunity for learning, rather than a battle won at all costs. In every conflict, it's crucial to recognize the areas where we truly have influence. We can control our attitude, our tone, and our reactions. We can manage the environment to ensure it's conducive to a productive and constructive conversation. And finally, we can define the boundaries of the conflict, preventing it from escalating and becoming something more destructive. By learning to manage these elements, we can transform even the most difficult disagreements into opportunities to strengthen our relationships. Sometimes what we need most in a conflict isn't to win, but to learn to communicate with greater clarity, empathy, and understanding. Communication is one of the fundamental pillars of humanity. From the earliest exchanges of sounds and gestures to the complex interactions we have today, the need to connect and understand others has been a constant in our evolution. Every conversation we have, every word we exchange is an opportunity to influence, understand, or simply connect. In this sense, each interaction becomes a form of negotiation, whether explicit or implicit. We seek to influence the other's perception, understand their thoughts, or many times, simply feel seen and heard. People who excel in this art are those who know how to handle the emotional complexities of a conversation, and most importantly, how to build genuine bonds that transcend words. What's fascinating is that being a super communicator is not a skill reserved only for a few. It's a talent that we all can learn and develop. Every interaction offers an opportunity to be more effective in our relationships, whether with friends, colleagues, or even strangers. The key lies in developing a skill that allows us to grasp the hidden meanings behind words, recognize the underlying emotions they carry, and perhaps most importantly, find common ground that allows us to connect on a deeper level. This kind of communication not only enhances our personal relationships, but also strengthens our ability to work as a team, resolve conflicts, and foster cooperation. By understanding the emotions and thoughts of others, we can create a more collaborative and empathetic environment where barriers dissipate and misunderstandings are reduced. I've found that some of the simplest ways to start improving our communication skills are through small gestures. Talking about our hobbies, for example, is a great way to break the ice and discover common interests. It's not just about sharing what we like, but opening a door for the other person to express themselves as well, creating space for authentic connection. It's surprising how, by taking that first step of vulnerability, the other person feels invited to do the same, creating a smoother and more genuine exchange. These small moments of openness can be the foundation of a stronger, deeper communication. A genuine smile also holds tremendous power. Sometimes the simplest things are the most effective. Laughter, when natural, has the ability to relax the atmosphere, break down invisible barriers, and create a sense of unity between people. In my experience, it's incredible how such a simple gesture can change the tone of a conversation, making two people, who initially seem worlds apart, find themselves in sync. This kind of instant emotional connection is what often leads to a genuine and lasting relationship. It's curious how something as basic as a smile can convey so much understanding, openness, and the willingness to share a moment without pretension. Another powerful tool is remembering and mentioning specific details about the other person. This kind of attention, while it may seem trivial, has a profound impact on the other person. It can be as simple as remembering the name of their pet or asking how their recent project went. These small gestures show genuine interest and respect for what the other person values, which strengthens the relationship and makes them feel valued. No one wants to be just another face in a crowd. We all want to feel heard, that our experiences and feelings have value. This kind of attention can transform a superficial conversation into a deep exchange, where both parties truly feel connected. In summary, improving our communication doesn't require great technical skills or an expert command of complex theories. What really matters is our willingness to be authentic, empathetic, and attentive. When we apply these simple gestures of interest and empathy, we can turn our everyday interactions into more meaningful and enriching experiences. The quality of our relationships, both personal and professional, is determined by our ability to connect on a genuine level, to see others as complete human beings, not just as interlocutors in a transaction. The true magic of communication lies in the ability to make the other person feel understood, respected, and appreciated. Now that you know how small gestures can transform the way you communicate, I invite you to start putting this into practice today. It's not about being perfect, it's about being authentic and mindful of the emotions present in every conversation. Imagine the impact you could have on your relationships, how you could build bridges of understanding, and how you could make every interaction count. The true power of communication lies within you, and by taking that first step, you'll be opening the door to a new way of connecting with the world. So if this content has resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with someone who could also benefit, and leave me a comment to let me know how you'll apply what you've learned. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, for investing your time in something that could truly change your life. Every conversation is an opportunity to grow. Until next time.